Horror games are usually not really my thing. Not because I'm going to shit myself out of fear, but instead because most of them tend to be the exact same thing. You are telling me I get to walk through pitch black hallways and dark woods for 5 hours straight, only to eventually get jump scared?
No thanks, bro.
I don't want to drag down the entire genre, of course. The few horror games I do like, I really like. And my absolute favorite is Silent Hill 2. Not only is it fucking creepy and sometimes absolutely repulsive, it also has stunning art and monster design as well as beautifully haunting music. While I usually love games for their gameplay, Silent Hill 2 stands out as one I adore for its story. Then, 2 years ago, it was announced that Bloober team were going to remake it. The creators of such hits as Layers of Fear, Blair Witch, and The Medium.
That was awful. That was the worst ending. It's an ending where it's like, you're even people who enjoyed the game.
Needless to say, I lost all hope. Especially when seeing the trailer footage of James fighting off monsters via QuickTime events like it's fucking Resident Evil 6. Even worse, he was being presented as this overtly emotional guy, which is literally the opposite of the original.
You're the one who stepped on my hand.
Skip to now that the remake is out, and I think it's pretty okay. I have some huge issues with this game, but nonetheless I do want to commend Bloober team. Remaking what's often cited as the greatest psychological horror game of all time isn't an easy task, and I do genuinely have the impression that they gave it their all. Either way, let me tell you what this game is even about. James Sunderland travels to Silent Hill after receiving a letter from his wife Mary asking him to come and find her. Nothing out of the ordinary until you consider that she's been dead for 3 years. Through the premise alone, the player can already figure out how desperate James is to see his wife again. There's nothing physically keeping him captive in Silent Hill. If he wanted, he could just fuck off and download a dating app, but he refuses to. Despite being so held back on his emotions, you soon understand that he really has nothing else to live for, except the faint hope of seeing his wife again. And delving deep into the town, his path crosses with a few other people who similarly to him carry some psychological trauma. This all sounds extremely bleak, because it is, but let me assure you, this game has its fair share of really uplifting and even really funny moments.
This town is full of monsters. How can you sit there and eat pizza?
Apart from a few minor details, the story in the remake is pretty unchanged. That's good. Similarly, the music has been re-recorded, but it also mostly sounds intact. A lot of modern horror games completely omit their soundtrack in favor of some ambient noise. I understand that a lot of people find this stuff creepy, but if you don't, this complete silence just becomes boring. So I'm very happy they pretty much kept the old soundtrack. The art style in the remake is noticeably worse though. Hear me out. On its own, it looks really pretty and impressive. But comparing the two versions side by side, it's immediately clear just how much more conscious the lighting and contrast choices are in the original. It's so much more hazy and ominous. The remake is far more focused on achieving realistic lighting, which looks good, but tell me, which one looks more creepy? Also, for a horror game, the blood effects are really lame. It looks like it's straight out of Ark Survival Evolved. Speaking of blood, I do honestly prefer the more modernized combat in this version. However, there's also a shit ton more of it. I understand they stretch out the game to give you some bang for your buck, but certain zones really didn't need to be longer. You run around the nightmare section so much now that they honestly quickly stop being creepy. The new puzzles they added are pretty good though, and fit right in with the rest. Let's get to the most important part though. Did they get the story and characters right? As mentioned, they didn't change a whole lot about the writing. I think Eddie is a bit less subtle and Maria's a lot less menacing, but I can live with that.
You gonna dance for me, big guy?
And while I still prefer the old voice actors, I think almost every new one does a really good job reinterpreting their character. The one exception for me is Angela. Without wanting to spoil too much, in the original game when you first meet her, Angela comes across as simply kinda lost and confused.
Excuse me,
I'm sorry.
However, she's one of the most tragic characters in the entire game. Slowly, you uncover her past and find out what truly plagues her. The original performance really conveys her raw feelings of guilt, worthlessness, and anger.
Oh, it's you. Oh, it's you.
It's not that the new performance is bad at all, but by comparison it lacks the same emotional intensity.
It's always the same. You're only after one thing.
It's always the same with you. You're only after one thing.
And that is unfortunately a statement I hold for this entire remake. Not bad at all, but a lot of personality is stripped away in order to make it feel more like other games instead of staying completely true to the original. I probably would be more lenient on the changes if they actually sold the original anywhere. I don't want to sound too negative, because on its own this remake is fine. But I'd only really recommend to check it out if you've already played or at least seen the original version. If you limit your Silent Hill 2 experience to only this game, you're missing out on the original atmosphere and performances. On PC, there's a fucking amazing fan remaster called the Enhanced Edition. And if the game's age makes you hesitant to play it yourself, I still recommend watching a Let's Play or walkthrough. As for Bloober Team, I know I was pretty mean to them, but I do genuinely think this is the most high quality game they've released yet. It made me a lot more curious about their upcoming releases. And when it comes to the Silent Hill games, I'm sure we'll talk more about the classic ones in the future. Until then, I hope you have a great time.